It's already a reality for seasonal flu. A couple of sprays up your nose and you get strong protection against a potentially deadly virus. But could it work for coronavirus? It would put the vaccine right where the virus reproduces, in the respiratory system. A nasal spray vaccine against COVID-19 could be the answer for countries struggling to contain the pandemic. I'm Rob Watts in Berlin. Welcome to DW's COVID-19 special. Now, one country that's pinning hopes on nasal spray vaccines is Mexico. The country with the world's third highest COVID-19 death toll is trying to speed up its immunisation programme. Only 1 in 10 Mexicans has had at least one dose of vaccine, and the government there is appealing for more shots from abroad. Here's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who received the AstraZeneca shot last month. But Mexico is also hoping to start producing its own vaccines and administer them through the nose.
Mexico, one of the countries worst affected by the coronavirus pandemic and dependent on imported vaccines in short supply globally. To help reduce the country's future dependency, Mexico is developing its own vaccine, named Patria, Spanish for homeland. The company spearheading the drive is already eyeing clinical trials. The Mexican government hopes the vaccine can be approved for emergency use by the end of the year. Authorities say it has several advantages. This is a vaccine that can be administered as a nasal spray. And we've been laying the groundwork for mass production that will help keep costs low. And this, in turn, will make the vaccine more accessible to people in countries such as ours, which are not as wealthy. That's thanks in large part to drawing on U.S. technology already used in other vaccines, which the Mexican developer says has proven safe and effective. The Mexican government has contributed to the funding. I think it's good. I don't know when it will come out. The problem here has been the lack of support for research, so it will take a long time. Mexico is a country that should be a leader in the Americas, and it should help supply other countries in Central America. Mexico's president has condemned vaccine hoarding by rich countries in the past. He says his nation will share its vaccine with others. Well, Dr. Peter Palese is the chairman of the Department of Microbiology at Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York. He and his team developed the key ingredient for the nasal spray vaccine that Mexico is developing. It has the snappy name of NDV-HXP-S. Dr. Palese, explain to me what that means.
Yes, let me first explain the name. NDV stands for Newcastle disease virus, which is actually an avian virus. And we are using a vaccine strain of chicken, which is directed to protect chicken against Newcastle disease virus. We're using this one, and we are introducing in this Newcastle disease virus, NDV, the S protein, the surface protein of SARS coronavirus 2. And so when we give that vaccine to people or to animals, then we produce the S protein, the surface glycoprotein of the SARS coronavirus 2, and then we make an immune response against this surface glycoprotein, which is protective. So, and the HXP stands for hexaproline. There are 6 prolines in this S protein, which stabilize the protein, make it expressed much more to higher titers, and it makes it to be stable, which is very important because the other vaccines, which are produced by Moderna and Pfizer, BioNTech, they can only be stored at -40 degrees, -80 degrees Celsius. Our vaccine, which is the NDV Hexapro S vaccine, is actually very, very stable, and can be transported and stored at regular home refrigerator temperatures, 2 to 4 degrees centigrade. So it is much, much cheaper to produce this vaccine as compared to the mRNA vaccines by Pfizer and Moderna. And it is very, very cheaply made because it can be done in the same way that influenza virus vaccines are produced all over the world. We can just inoculate embryonate eggs. That's the way of how regular influenza virus vaccines are made. We just introduce our NDV-HXP-S strain into eggs, and we can make millions and millions of doses at a very, very low cost.
I think the fact that it's produced in eggs will really surprise people, because it does make it very different to what we've been hearing about the research so far. But as I mentioned before about the fact that this can actually be administered through a nasal spray, I mean, what's the advantage of that?
So far, I'm only talking about the US, really. So far, in the United States, we do have vaccines against COVID-19, but they are all injected. They're all injected. So they are not producing what we call mucosal immunity. When we administer it through the nose, we produce in the upper respiratory tract, an immunity which is preventing of the COVID-19 virus to replicate. So we can use both platforms, the inactivated one which gets injected, and also the one which is used as a spray through the nose, and we believe we will make a very good protection in the respiratory tract against COVID-19. It works beautifully in animals. We have fantastic, compelling studies in hamsters and in mice, but obviously mice are not men, hamsters are not humans, so we have to really find out how these different platforms, live, through the nose, or killed, injected, how that works out in people.
Yes, and that could take some time. When are we looking at your vaccine actually, being administered to people's noses?
So I was always told, if a journalist asks me how long it will take, is not to answer that question. However, we are in 5 countries now, which are doing phase 1/2 trials. In the past, we made phase 1, then we waited phase 2, and we waited phase 3. But because of the urgency of COVID-19, many of us are doing phase 1/2 in parallel. And in those 5 countries, as I said, hundreds of people have been vaccinated in the phase 1/phase 2. And we hope we will get the first data by June, July of this year. And then it really depends how much effort is being put into it. We were just told that in Brazil about 1 million doses have been produced, so that we believe that the phase 2 and phase 3 could be done fairly rapidly. But again, it will depend how fast these studies can be done, these human trials can be executed, and that depends on the country. It certainly will take some more time in the US because we are holier than thou with our FDA.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Peter Palese, for joining us on the COVID-19 special. Time to answer more of your questions now. Over to our science correspondent, Derek Williams.
The AstraZeneca vaccine is around 70% effective. Is that really enough for it to be any good?
I've received several different versions of this question, so the issue is obviously one that's causing some confusion. I think what's driving it is a similarity between 2 very different factors that are expressed as a similar percentage, 70%. The first of those factors is an epidemiological prediction that comes up a lot. It's what's now considered to be a kind of lowball estimate of the number of people needed to achieve what we call herd immunity, that very theoretical moment when enough people are immune to COVID-19 through vaccination or having had the disease to allow us to get on top of transmission. That 70%, however, is different from the second factor, the roughly 70% effectiveness claimed by the AstraZeneca vaccine. That 70% basically tells you that if a large number of people receive the vaccine and an equally large number don't, and then you wait a few months to see who comes down with symptomatic COVID-19, more than 2/3 of them will be from the unvaccinated group. Gauging effectiveness is, as you can see, quite tricky because you're basically trying to put a number on how many vaccinated people didn't get infected. But the AstraZeneca vaccine's 70+% effectiveness is actually quite high compared to many other vaccines and will help us a lot in our attempts to reach that other 70+% goal when herd immunity dynamics should begin kicking in.